Welcome to Lost Hope. My name's Bubba, and with me is
Catfish.
Catfish, whose face is on the $100 bill.
Alexander Hamilton?
The bargain is set. Stephen, reach into Catfish's pocket and remove his $100, which he shall give to me and the magician's wife.
Wow, that was some amazing magic you did right there
The bargain is made. So, Catfish, here we are. We're going to review episode 5 of BBC One and BBC America's adaptation of Susanna Clarke's novel, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is Chapter 5, Arabella. Let's get...
Right, 5 of 7.
5 of 7. We are 50% done. No. We are only 2 episodes left, so Catfish, let's get to it. What are you going to give episode 5 your rating out of 10?
Well, first, let me say the valuable lesson I learned from this episode that I'm going to take to my life,
Okay.
my usual life, and that is never renounce all your other wives.
Right.
Just accept all of them.
Right.
Accept every single wife / significant other you have.
Yeah, because you don't want to make that bargain, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Always accept. I'm going to give this 8.
8.
Completed sea beacons out of the 10 completed sea beacons that we need for them, the sea beacons to actually be completed.
The sea beacons get no respect. They are the always dissed sea beacons.
Yeah.
All right, why did it get an 8?
Well, it was a little low there for a while, but I was like, okay, you know what? It's low because I feel sad because of Belle. So, because it engaged my emotions, I gave it an 8. I did feel, I know it seems strange to say considering we had a faux death and there was some excitement having to do with Lady Poole. I still felt a little, it felt a little slow to me, this episode.
Oh, okay. Well, I am going to give this episode 9, what I like to call triple M's out of 10.
Triple M's?
Yeah, triple M. I use the term triple M anytime I need to refer to messy mud magic. So 9 bits of messy mud magic out of 10.
I don't know how I forgot that one. You'd always give me a hard time when I forget things. It's the triple M's that I always forget the most.
Yeah, I thought this episode started really strong at Waterloo, and then you're right. It certainly turned sad, certainly turned slow, but that ending, and it is just like the last 2 to 4 minutes of the episode where Mr. Strange just snaps. And he's like, what? He's trying to stop my book. He wouldn't give me any help. And he travels through the mirror to Mr. Norrell's place. And just that whole scene I loved.
I do like when he has the idea, hey, why don't I just become nuts? And I think his friend makes a good point. You can't just choose to be nuts. Like all the women that I dated in college, I don't think they chose. I just think they
worked at it.
Nuts.
Oh,
I know. Okay. I think they came by it naturally.
Right.
And my attraction to them also came naturally, but I weaned myself off.
All right, I need to issue a correction.
Uh-oh.
Last week,
what did you mess up?
Last week, I said it was episode 4 that Peter Harness, the screenwriter who adapted this novel, said was episode 4 was his favorite. But it's actually this episode, chapter 5, which he says is his favorite.
And by the way, I like this. You were corrected by Peter Harness himself. I think that's great. He's like, no.
Well, I have not seen every episode, but I have seen the next episode,
right.
Episode 6, and spoiler alert, that might be my favorite.
What?
So let's just say it right now. This adaptation
that was better.
This adaptation is wonderful.
It is.
It is just great.
It is.
It is. I always joke about how we're the only Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell podcast. There should be more. This is damn good.
It's very good. It's very well, as we said, it's very well scripted. It's well shot. It's amazingly well acted, and it's just all coming together. I love it.
Yeah. Now on today's episode,
and then let me say this: it's amazing because I think the screenwriter does know you well.
Know me well.
Yeah, because he had a line that I've heard you say to the ladies, only slightly modified it.
Okay, what was that?
Well, your line that you use is to the ladies, you walk up to them usually and you say, I do not offer anything to you that will be exquisitely agreeable to you in any way, shape, or form. And it was just only slightly, the thistle-down hairs, slightly put a slight spin on it. It said that will not be exquisitely agreeable to you. So you know what? This is, I've been out with you when you make your move on the ladies, and I have to say you are eminently quotable at that point.
Let's edit that all from our minds. Folks, on today's podcast, we're going to recap and review this wonderful episode Chapter 5, Arabella. We have had some great guests. We had the screenwriter himself, Peter Harness. We're so grateful he was a guest. We had the wonderful Kate Nevue, who did those great book reviews, rereads on Tor.com. We had John Reppian, who has been writing those great articles on Fairy for Daily Grail. And today we have yet another awesome, super special guest.
Wait, you forgot the guest we had? We had Uncle Murray. Little Murray.
You mean last week we had Little Murray. Catfish, how old was Little Murray?
Little Murray is 11.
So when this says it's TV 14...
Well, let's just say this. Uncle Catfish Camp is also known as Inappropriate Camp, where every year we do more and more inappropriate things. So I said to her this year when I was taken to the airport, what was the most inappropriate thing that we did this year?
What'd she say?
Well, her first response was, well, you really stepped it up this year. Let's just say we watched about 10 episodes of Inside Amy Schumer, and that is inappropriate to watch with your 11-year-old niece.
You are being reported to child services.
I stepped it up this year.
Yes.
Okay, so who is the fifth guest that we have?
The guest on this week's show is somebody we've said we've wanted for a long time. He is an expert. It's a guy I like to call Double M.
Double M?
Yes, Matt Murdick.
Oh, I was waiting for this.
The host of Sorkin Cast, a podcast about the works of Aaron Sorkin, the host of Podcast Winterfell about George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. Everybody, Matt is so wonderful. On his podcast Winterfell, he breaks down some of the music from the HBO show Game of Thrones. And he's done that for this wonderful series where he's taken a look at some of the music, some of the scoring, and it's certainly great in this episode 5 as well. And so, Matt, that's going to be after we review and recap the show.
This is another.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome.
This is value-added podcasting right here.
Well, all the guests have been great. Matt, folks, right after we get done with our recap and review, we're going to check that out. It's so great. Plus, we're going to get to your tweets, your opinions, and your iTunes reviews you've been kind enough to give us. It's going to be what I like to call a double P podcast.
Double P?
A packed podcast.
So that would be a packed podcast then if you say double P podcast.
To me. All right.
All right. So and we have some good news for our double L's.
Our double L's.
Loyal listeners.
Oh, right. That's what they are.
Yeah. Is that after begging, after what it feels like years and years of begging, first we got a response from the writer of
Peter
this great
Harness,
show who offered to send us a signed script.
That would be wonderful.
Which we would love, to no end. That I think would be number one on the list.
Yeah.
But then after much berating, once again, I've been left out. But you received a message.
Yeah, BBC America said they want to send us some giveaways that we can give to you, our wonderful listeners. And it's really you guys who, through your gentle prodding, has convinced them to share some prizes with us that we'll be giving. We haven't received any yet, so until then, know that your prize will be the footnote bell, but hopefully we'll receive some. But that means you got to get your tweets in with hashtag Lost Hope Podcast. You got to get your iTunes reviews in to be eligible to win whatever possible great prizes we might receive.
Listen to me. We're not going to hold on to anything. There's no reason to hold on to the bell, and there's not going to be a season 2 of this show. The bell's going to go.
Right.
The signed script. Every single thing we get is going to go. We're not holding on to a damn thing except for our pride.
We won't hold on to that.
Oh, I've lost that already.
All right, so now let's get into Chapter 5,
Arabella.
Right. And it starts, Catfish. Tough. It is, of course, time to begin with a footnote.
Okay.
In Catfish, you're going to have to help me. Even though I took French, how would you pronounce this right here?
I took Latin.
Chateau.
It's Chateau de
Hougoumont?
Yeah.
Hougoumont?
Or it might be Hougoumont.
Hougoumont.
Okay.
So it is a large farmhouse situated at the bottom of an encampment near Waterloo.
Got it.
And in this little house that we see here at the beginning of the episode is where the British and other Allied forces faced Napoleon's army at the Battle of Waterloo on June 18th.
Okay.
1815.
Okay, thanks for the year.
Now, very famous, it was this Sous-Lieutenant Legros who entered the Chateau Hougoumont, and he was wielding an axe. He managed to break through the north gate, and a desperate fight ensued between the invading French soldiers and the defending guards. In a near miraculous attack, MacDonald, a small party of officers, and Corporal James Graham fought the melee to shut the gate again, trapping this guy with the axe and 30 other French soldiers, and then everybody was killed. And now
so we know that's not the way it happened.
Well, now we know it actually, that's Wikipedia. Wikipedia didn't realize that Jonathan Strange was the guy who took care of this jerk with the axe.
We'll have to update it when we do our Norrapedia.
Right. We'll have to update this. And this is one of those things. I don't like talking about specifics from the books because I get a lot of tweets. A lot of people write in and they say, hey, I'm going to watch the series and then read the books. But this is one of those times where they had to condense things for a TV budget. So they had all the action happen here inside the Chateau Hougoumont. And so,
right.
But it's still a great, powerful opening.
Absolutely.
Really strong thing. And we see that because this chateau has been fired upon, Jonathan Strange is bringing rain to put out the fire, and the soldiers are like, hey, stop this. You're making it very miserable and sloppy and tough to fight.
It's kind of funny because at this point, we kind of assume that he could quickly do anything. You know?
Yeah,
It's almost shocking that this fight is happening at all, that he hasn't just like overwhelmed everybody by like making like a big mud or water wave to push all the other guys back.
Right. Well, it was, remember, just back in episode 3, Catfish, you called it as possibly foreshadowing the infamous line when the Duke of Wellington asked Strange, he said, could a magician use magic to kill a man? And he said, well, someone could. So, magic could be used to kill a man, but a magician never would. Never could.
A gentleman never would.
A gentleman. Well, does that mean Jonathan Strange is no longer a gentleman? Because first he uses some magic to talk to the vines and uses the vines to start strangling the French soldiers who are climbing the wall. And he's flinging these poor guys. It's like magic can't kill a man, but maybe magic can really F somebody up.
Well, my only concern about not using magic to kill a man is once you're in a war for a couple weeks and you realize
war is hell.
It's either us or them.
Yeah,
I think that goes down very quickly. Your resistance to trying to kill someone. I mean,
let's just do this.
He's not Batman,
right? And so, sure enough, this guy breaks through with an axe. And one of his friends, I have to be honest, I don't remember this officer's name, but he was one of the people with Strange and Grant, the other soldier with Strange and Grant last week at the billiard hall. He gets taken down by this axe. And I'm not usually a fan. In fact, let me just say it. I am not a fan of slow-mo or this strobe effect they use. But it's still pretty powerful when Strange reaches his hands into the mud and decides to take this guy out the old-fashioned way.
Well, I just have to say, I mean, I think what they do without having to choreograph a bunch of fighting, they make this. You really get a sense of the desperation and the sort of ugliness and the craziness of the hand-to-hand combat. No pun intended.
And the body-to-hand combat that this poor French soldier. That is a tough way to go.
Yeah. So he squeezes him out.
Oh my Lord! Which do you think? Did you like all the effects? We had the water effect to put out the fire. We had the vines, and now the bloody,
hand effect.
Muddy hand.
I love the hand effect.
I did too. That was really, really good.
And so really smartly, okay, we get that. I didn't know that this was like the defining battle.
Right.
But boom, we go back to home where Strange and Belle are there, right?
This is like, it's almost like a flashback to Waterloo. He's going to have a little scene with his wife, and then he'll flash back to Waterloo. But Strange has PTSD, doesn't he? He
does, and it's funny for a second. You almost wonder, like, did he not go to war? I mean, I know that, they said he was going to go off, but it's kind of an interesting thing that happens for a second. You're like, okay, well, what is actually going on? And then when we go back and see, I figured it out. But also a very interesting, the total DB commander.
What do you mean, the Duke of Wellington?
Yeah.
Not Grant. Grant's a good guy.
No.
They've been patched up.
I mean the big guy says something very powerful.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, after Waterloo has happened and Napoleon's been defeated yet again, Grant comes up. Both Strange and Grant are shocked that the other is alive. I mean, this obviously was a bloody, just terrible war. One of the things I heard about this is that these wars of Napoleonic wars were the last wars before photography. And so that's one of the fun things about the setting of this time period, is that's why you don't have any pictures of Jonathan Strange or anything. But the war is over.
I mean, besides the fact that he's not real?
Catfish. Oh, spoiler alert when you say these things. So sure enough, here is the Duke of Wellington, and he says, well, gentlemen, the war is over. What do you think they'll do with us now?
Yeah, and that is pretty, I mean, again, what somebody had told Belle, and that she was worried about that, when after they come back from war,
right,
they're not the same because they want to be out there doing war, and I believe that about Wellington, but I never believed that about Strange.
No.
He's not the kind of guy to relish, at least up to this point, a fight in any way. He doesn't really like conflict.
Right, but I would say that this is what Belle wanted in the last episode. She's like, I want you home. I don't want you going on the King's Road and getting into, possible more dangerous here.
Right.
Let's just go back and retire.
So
and Strange, what I was going to say, let me just
Go
finish
ahead.
this point. What I was going to say is that Strange has a lot of things. He's happy that he's writing his book. He's happy that he's with Arabella. But I would say the lack of being a practical magician and this PTSD, I'm not sure he's totally happy in this kind of post-war setting. How could you be after you lived through that? What were you going to say?
Well, that's funny. So I have a totally different opinion.
Okay.
Which is that considering, yes, he's got the PTSD, but considering to me, he seemed happy to be writing his book. He seemed to be happy to be out there in the countryside. It's almost as if what we were worried about last episode, that everything was going to be fine, but then the war got in the way. It didn't really seem like this war got in the way too much, at least the way that it's pictured here.
Well, in this first scene, maybe, yes, but later... in this first scene, I think the war has kind of scarred him a bit.
No, I believe that the war scarred him, but then he seems to get back to comfort, and then we don't see him struggling with that life. To me, I don't see him struggling with that life. They never get to a point where it's a struggle, and then the thing with Belle comes up. It seems to me like he's settling, he's happy, he hasn't gotten restless yet, and then the Belle thing happens. So he could have, but I don't see any signs of it.
To me, the way I read it is that he was, just kind of lost, as you would be after all this stuff.
Right.
And he's slowly warming back and coming back to normal. And there's that scene which we're going to get to in a bit, where Arabella says, hey, let's have kids. And that would be like his final, okay, I can release, I can do this. And of course, that's right when things really go to hell for him.
Right. So I agree with that. But what I was saying was at the last, it almost seemed to me like, and this is a thing that always bothers me, the kind of the Romeo and Juliet thing where like everything's going to be fine. And then one thing happens, and that's the point where everything changes. To me, the war is not what changed him.
Right. So you've brought up a good point, Catfish. Shakespeare was a hack.
Good. Yes. Sorry. You know what? You were always able to cut through all the bullshit and get right to exactly what I'm trying to say.
So Arabella is showing Jonathan these etchings that have been made of the King's Road for his book. And if he's a little wounded, there at least is a sign of happiness.
And then what I love was there's a scene with the guy who's going to publish the book, and it's our old friend George Wendt.
This gentleman, this character does look a lot like George Wendt from Cheers. Norm! But this is, get ready for it, folks.
Talk to me.
This is John Murray. He's a Scotchman and a publisher and seller of books and magazines. Various luminaries of the English literary and political world are accustomed to frequent his rooms, and Lord Byron is among his authors.
Wow, that's a good one. Hold on.
Yeah.
Just another side note just from us is that we saw a live version of Reanimator the musical that George Wendt was in.
That's true.
And that was quite enjoyable. If you have a chance to see that musical, I recommend it highly. The Evil Dead musical, I'm not a huge fan of, but Reanimator, great.
Catfish, we're giving reviews of everything on this
Everything. This is what it's all about.
But you know who wouldn't want us to give any more reviews, especially not in Jonathan Strange's book, is Mr. Norrell. He is PO'd. He doesn't want that book book sold at all. And of course, this publisher, Mr. Murray, he's like, I gotta publish it. And he's like, listen, magic is a popular thing. The magazine Friends of English Magic sold well. Mr. Strange, your book, and Mr. LaSalle's book sold well. Well, until it got reviewed. Ooh.
Right. Now, that's kind of a funny thing, because usually you would think that, there's no publicity is bad publicity. And he didn't say it was badly written. So you think people might go, oh, well, let me see what all the hubbub is about. So I think it might actually sell more books.
No, apparently magic can be used to kill people. We saw in earlier the episode, and reviews can be used to kill books.
Okay, good to know.
And of course, we find out that Jonathan Strange's book is going to be published in August of 1816. And boy, LaSalle's and Norrell are upset. And Norrell, on the carriage ride back to Hanover Square, Norrell says something very interesting to Mr. LaSalle's. And he says, and he's talking about Strange's book, he's like, what have I ever done to Strange? How could he injure me like this? And do you see Strange is writing this book to hurt Norrell? Or is he just doing it to do it because he wants the other side, the Raven King, the pro-Raven King side out there?
He does, but if he thought about it, he would have known that both the review and writing his own book would hurt Norrell. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't do it, but he should recognize, hey, it's going to upset this person. He knows him well enough.
Well, so many things upset Mr. Norrell. It's kind of,
that's what
how
I'm
do you
saying.
narrow it down?
That's what I'm saying. The other thing is, let me just say technically here, because we have, throughout this episode, there are like 4 or 5 different scenes that sort of lead up to the book getting, that it's not going to be published.
The big blow up.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe that was enough. Maybe just 2 or 3 of those scenes. I mean, once this topic was brought up, I had no doubt that they'd find a way to block the book.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We haven't actually reached August of 1816 yet, so we'll see if the book comes out.
Oh, all right.
All right. So
wait, can't you just read on Norwipedia whether it came out?
I don't have admin rights there.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
So. Meanwhile, while this Jonathan Strange is having happy life at home, and we have Norrell getting upset about this book, we see out on the moors, and I'm going to call everything the moor. Any bit of countryside, I'm going to say, look at that, there's the good old moor.
It's foggy.
And snowy. It's obviously winter here.
Yeah.
And we see somebody out riding, and he notices a woman in black. And when he calls to her, the woman turns around, and it looks like it's Arabella. And here's Arabella out in this snowstorm in just a thin dress and without any shoes. And this guy calls to her, but she disappears into the fog. He's like, Madam, let me help you.
Yeah, but before that, we do see that it's actually, let's call it Bizarro Arabella. Well, how should we refer to her as?
Moss Oak A. It's Moss Oak A for Arabella. And Moss Oak A... Great acting, don't you think? Because you can tell the difference between the two. One is just completely friggin' nuts. Not too human, old Moss okay. So this gentleman, he knows the Stranges, and he rides in to tell Jonathan Strange. He's like, hey, I was out riding, and I saw Lady Strange. And he's like, my mom's dead. He's like, no, listen. I saw your wife. I know her. I've known her since she was a kid because I've lived here my whole life.
And this is, I think, pointing out something that's happened before already.
What's that?
Is that even though Strange likes to do magic, his sort of intellectual curiosity is a little low.
Yeah,
this is not the first time someone told him something that that I would have investigated. But he's just like, nah, whatevs. It's no biggie. You just didn't figure it out.
Right, and as this guy leaves, the guy's like, listen, I saw your wife, it was her. As the guy leaves, he says, watch her, pay attention, make sure your wife's okay. So this guy knows something is up, but God bless Jonathan Strange, you're right, he can't believe it, he can't put his head around it. Maybe because he says in this scene, he hasn't done any practical magic since Waterloo, so he can't get his head around it.
Right. His intellectual curiosity is at zippo.
Right. I wish he had, though. Obviously, he wishes he had.
Let's just say, though, that what we forgot to mention is that room should be familiar, because the last time we saw that room, it was very cold.
Right. Once your dad died in this room, you make that your study. You're like, no, exactly. It was his study. It'll be my study now. Catfish, now you've read the book, but did you remember what was going to happen?
No.
Oh, it is terrible. So let's get to the final scene of happiness between Jonathan and Arabella. They're in their bedroom.
Up to this point.
Right. And they're in their bedroom, and what's interesting is Mr. Norrell is obsessed with Strange in his book. But Mr. Strange, he's like, it's an academic quarrel. Big deal.
Whatever.
Whatevs.
We'll both get a little notoriety.
We'll be forgotten.
We're going to be forgotten.
Big deal.
It ain't no thing. It ain't no thing.
And so here's where I think he's like, okay, I can do this. Let me get busy with my beautiful wife.
Heck yeah.
And nothing looks sexier than her in a full night shirt that goes all the way to her ankles.
I mean,
so you can't see anything.
Back in those times, they're practically buck naked. I mean, she's practically...
He can see a bit of her...
stripped down for him.
Right, he can see a bit of her shoulder, a.k.a. she's showing too much.
That's right. Bam. Listen, you hussy.
So they decide to have kids, and this is one of those things like, I'm about to retire from the police force.
Exactly.
You never want to say anything like that. And sure enough, as we leave them and go to Staircross Hall, the lunatic asylum for anybody magically afflicted.
It is. Right now, it's just room for one.
Room for one, but Lady Pole, boy, she has had a miserable life. Mm-hmm. If she died, and once again, the timeline gets a bit tricky. If she died in 1807, this is like 7 to 8 years she's been suffering through this stuff.
Right. They sort of try and, age her up, and they kind of age Strange up.
Yeah, everybody is. Even our boy Segundus here in this scene has a little gray in his hair. Mm-hmm. So she wakes up. She knows something's wrong. She's like, you got to go tell Mr. Strange. Mr. Honeyfoot, Mr. Segundus, go to Mr. Strange. He can't accept the bargain. He can't accept the bargain. And outside, we see a carriage pulling up to the Strange house. This is cross-cut. This carriage has these great branches and weeds and scary stuff on it. Mm-hmm. And, oh, boy.
And your boy is taking notes, though, of what Lady Pole is saying. So, because he's like, let me write this down, because I like to write.
Honeyfoot. Is slowly beginning to piece stuff together.
Now it seems to me that somehow... Belle's been kind of enchanted here.
Right,
I can't imagine
here.
that she would have been like, let me get out of bed and let me not put on my clothes and jump into this carriage.
Right, and let me get the door. They had servants. If somebody rang at the door, no, this is a special enchantment. I should say that one of the things in their happiness, Arabella and Jonathan Strange were talking about, he's like, I'll chop down the trees and I'll take care of the East Garden. And that's a bit of a callback to the last episode where Jonathan's like, you told me to get a profession, and I got one, and now you're upset. And she said, I would hope you'd be something like a gardener. And so now...
Oh, right.
Now he's actually gardening.
You sure was that? I know that was landscape architect, which is slightly different.
So, she must be enchanted a bit already, because she hears the knock. She goes downstairs.
Right. Boom. And
do you want to call out Stephen for maybe he doesn't have a choice, but I don't know, assisting in this bit of terribleness? Oh, my God.
I'm more and more, I'm on the side of Stephen is a dick.
Well, Stephen, he comes to Arabella, he says...
But I'll say this.
Yeah.
His outfit tonight was beautiful.
He was sharp-dressed man.
Yeah, he's looking good. He's looking king-like.
Okay. Well, he comes to Arabella and he tells her, your friend is in trouble, implying Lady Pole, I need you to come. She stole, he's like, you've got to come with me. She's in great distress.
Right.
And what a terrible ruse to get Arabella into this enchanted carriage. And... oh, boy, we are not deep into the episode. We're only 18 minutes in, and everything is going to hell. Everything you were afraid of, Catfish,
but they do it interesting again with the way the camera's sort of cocked, and
this is the funhouse
she's sort
mirror,
of in a funk kind of thing. And so it's very clear. It's clear. Well, later on we see Stephen may be many things, but a safe driver is not one of them.
No, and they... cross-cut a lot of that with Lady Pole screaming. It is just very, very effective, wonderful work. Jonathan Strange wakes up. It almost sounds like there's a window open and there's rustling, but of course, you wouldn't suspect anything, would you? You
No.
know, your wife just got up early. And
He wakes up. It's like a lot of your college days. Goes to bed with somebody. Wakes up alone.
Hey, that was in a private journal, Catfish. You weren't supposed to be reading that.
Well, I was going to publish it.
Okay. You can't publish this book. Seditious.
So he just decides to eat, whatever.
Well,
Ladies out.
Right, it's snowing and freezing cold outside, so she must have gone out for a walk. What's he thinking here? And sure enough, this same gentleman rides up to the house. But now Mr. Strange can tell something's going on. He goes, Mary, go find my wife. He says that even before the guys entered the house. He can tell something's wrong. And Strange is beginning to put two and two together. Mary comes back, the maid, she says, your wife isn't in the house.
His house is so big.
Right.
He thought she might have been in some other part of the house.
Right. In the this is where my dad died room.
Yeah, right. Right. So he decides to go look. He decides to look for her the only way he knows how, and that's to fill up the bowl of water.
To do a magic trick. And this magic trick, you can tell, once again, it scares the maid. She's like,
right.
Oh, crap.
Is he using the Find My Worst Enemy spell?
No, that requires a mirror. This is his bowl of water. But what's interesting is he should know something's up, in my opinion. He's like, she's not in England, Wales, or Scotland. Obviously, if she's not in any of those places, she's gone somewhere magical.
Once again,
why didn't he?
Once again, even though he can imagine all these great things, he imagines that he's the only one who can do it. So he doesn't imagine that there's any kind of nefariousness happening, and that someone else could be doing it. I mean, at the very least, think, "Whoa, Norrell hates me. Maybe he's done something." But no, he doesn't. He doesn't suspect, because let's just put it this way: he's kind of a himbo.
Hey, now.
I'm just saying.
Hey, now. Are you saying you're no longer on Team Strange?
I'm still on Team Strange. Look, I have a sweet but stupid dog. I still love him.
So they go out in a search party in the snow, and this is just utter misery. Jonathan Strange, he can tell something's really wrong. He comes back. They've spent the whole day searching, and the search party is there in his study. Strange says something here where he goes, I think I remember her getting up and leaving.
Right.
And the search party's like, you didn't say this before, and I wonder if this is where some people begin to suspect if maybe he had done something. Like, well, gee, you didn't say that before.
Oh, good point. I wondered why that scene happened at the time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
So we cut away from them to
Stephen, the horrible driver.
He can't control these wild horses.
Horrible driver.
And this image right here is really how I always imagined the interconnection between our world and the fairy world. And we have a scene of the carriage, and it goes over this bridge, and you can tell it's like leaving normal-looking land, and it's going into the land of fairy. And this is how, in the books, I always imagined it, something like this. And sure enough, Stephen is bringing Arabella to Lost Hope. Oh!
Woo! Podcast. Remember, Lost Hope podcast.
Right. If he had brought her to our podcast, things would have been better off. But instead,
that would have been a hell of an interview.
Right. She would have been a more special guest than all our special guests. It's like, here's Arabella. But suddenly, back in the Strange household, the doors fly open, and in walks Moss Oak A.
Moss Oak A.
And she is, oh my God.
Basically, it seems like she's got some lines that she's been given by the man with the thistle-down hair. And there's pretty much kind of a timer on her. As soon as she says a certain amount of lines and she gets the response she wants, that's her expiration date.
Right. So let's go through the 3 bullet points. Am I your wife? Jonathan Strange pretty much says, of course you are. You are. She goes, do you accept me as your wife? And he's like, yes, yes, yes. And then the final curse, the final dagger. This whole scene, it's great. It's intercut with the real Arabella being dragged into the Lost Hope. Oh, so terrible. And so the final dagger, what is it, Catfish? What is he going to make?
He says, do you renounce anyone else, all your other wives? And he says, I do.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Again, lesson learned. Do not renounce your other wives.
Dear Lord, no. That's the most important lesson, fellas. Do you denounce your other girlfriends? No.
No ways.
When they say, do you recognize me as your wife or girlfriend? Say no. Just in case.
Good point. Good point.
You know.
Or you can always say, let me get back to you on that.
Right. Let me check. Maybe knock on her head, see if it sounds like wood.
Right. She'll understand.
Right. And so Arabella is here in the ballroom in Lost Hope, and she's like, I thought you were bringing me to Lady Pole. And
she still has kind of her wits about her.
yeah, she hasn't truly been enchanted yet.
But as soon as she turns around
Thistle-down.
and sees our boy, well, oh man. So, and again, this is intercut, dealing with Moss Oak A along with the actual Belle being enchanted. And Moss Oak A, she, again, reminds me of some relationships I had in college. Wide-eyed, crazy.
Did they dish you as bad as she says you're a poor husband to Jonathan? Did your crazy girls ever dish you that much?
Absolutely. But, my policy in college was you could say whatever you want as long as,
Oh, no.
Moving on.
Okay. Well, I want to say this, Catfish, and that is that people on Twitter they don't always, just because, let's be honest, there are too many characters, they don't always say, refer to him by the gentleman with thistle-down hair. Do you know what people on Twitter just tend to refer to him as?
Talk to me.
Eyebrows.
Eyebrows, huh?
Yes. Yeah, can you guess why that is?
Well, I can, because as I said, I think the image they came up with is, let's do a combination of Sting and Brad Dourif from Dune. Brad Dourif had the
he had
the eyebrows,
and Sting
the crazy
had the pompadour with white hair.
Yeah, so boom, it's a combo platter.
And I had to retweet this when I saw it last night during the episode. Somebody, Gina D'Alfonso, she tweeted out and she said, "Someone send Eyebrows a copy of Boundaries." Because the gentleman with thistle-down hair, he doesn't know any boundaries. He just knows, I want the magician's wife.
Well, and as I predicted, I know this is going to happen later on, but as I predicted earlier, as soon as he got Arabella, Lady Poole got shunted off to the side. Because Lady Poole's like, I can never get to Arabella.
Right.
Because, basically, the man with thistle-down hair is like, all mines, get away.
All mine. I've made him a trade. This is just the worst. And Moss Oak A, she is creepy. You wouldn't want to have kids with her. Little acorns.
The only thing that you could forgive Jonathan Strange for is if you thought someone had been wandering around outside and whatever, you'd accept anything they said.
Right, if she was frostbitten.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't necessarily say, this is not her. You'd say, oh, something's going on with her. But then, again, inappropriate. The man with the thistle-down hair is like,
he puts his spell on her. And this is maybe why it's easier to like Lady Pole than is Stephen. Lady Pole is fighting it. She keeps screaming. She keeps trying to get through. Where poor Stephen, I think you got to like them both. But Stephen's been just defeated. And he's doesn't even know what to do.
He gave up this right away. And then, but somehow Arabella gets so enchanted. Again, Lady Pole is not into it, but as soon as Arabella gets enchanted, she's like, bam, all in. # awesome.
Right, and the gentleman gives her a beautiful gown and a beautiful crown of, what are the leaves or whatever. And it is just terrible. Just absolutely terrible. Ugh.
Although, again, I mean, Belle's been through a lot. I don't begrudge her any happiness.
Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Wait a minute. Not cool, Catfish.
Well, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting because two entirely different things have happened here. Okay?
Yes, that's a very good point.
Lady Pole is half in that Lost Hope world and half in the real world.
Very good
So this
point.
is what's driving her crazy.
Right.
But Belle is fully now in the Lost Hope world, not physically in the real world at all.
Right. And maybe we see that the people who actually may be able to save everybody, is Honeyfoot and Secundus. Because Honeyfoot, a.k.a. Honeyfoot and Secundus, # True Detective Season 3, they are putting the pieces together, Catfish.
Yeah. Well, it's Honeyfoot. Right. I mean, it's a good, they're a good combo because Secundus can sniff out magic.
Right.
And Honeyfoot can sniff out like a well-cooked pheasant.
Honeyfoot, has no magical qualities, but he's got his little gray cells, as my boy Perot would say. And he's putting together this mystery. He's like, some of this just flat-out gibberish that Lady Pole is saying, I think I've heard this gibberish before.
Well, it's funny because you early translated some of her gibberish as well, because some of it has a correlation in the real, quote unquote, real history of fairies.
Yeah, I'm going to actually get to that in a bit, where I'm going to read the Wikipedia entry on fairies.
Not the Norrpedia entry, because
the Norrpedia.
The Norrpedia is disturbingly quiet on fairy lore.
Right, we don't want to get into trouble. But anyway, yeah, it is crazy. We come back and we see that Jonathan is spent all night worrying over his wife. In the book, this is 3 days that he's had to put up with Moss Oak A, but she is dead. Oh, my God. That's a good dead face, too, for Moss Oak A.
Yeah,
Creepy.
way to go. Way to MOA it up.
And what did you take of Jonathan's reaction to this, Catfish? Because he at the end of the episode, he's talking about, I want to go mad, but he begins to go mad, it feels like, right here. Like this.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, he says it later, is that, honestly, I mean, when we saw him at the beginning, it seemed to me that there were three things he cared about.
Right.
One of them was Belle,
right.
The other one was drinking, and the other one was gambling.
Yeah, he gave up the other two for her.
He did, and it seemed like he was
even
happy
gave up
to.
magic for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guess who we never talk about happy to do anything? That's our boy, Mr. Norrell, and he's back with his friends here in
the House of
Commons. And he's still trying to get this book shut down.
Let's count this out. So this is scene 2 with the escalation of how to stop the strange
He's gone
magic.
to the publisher. The publisher said, I'm going to publish it. Now he's going to the government, and he says, shut this down. And he keeps using some stuff, but what's funny is they kind of pitch a reason that he suddenly clams onto.
They do, and it's smart of him, although he doesn't grab it very fast.
No.
But it also sets up an interesting thing which we hadn't heard about before, which I think might be important later on, is that, of course, you know, when it came to the industrial age, like every age where there's great leaps forward, some people are left behind. So the people who have been left behind by the advances here are not just writing, but they're using the Raven King as sort of their inspiration.
Right.
And so that's makes you think, of course, now anybody aligned with the Raven King is sort of aligned, you know, it's like saying, you know, like in the 50s here, it's like, have you been to any meetings with the communists? Have you been to any meetings?
That's right.
Uh-oh, what's that?
And let's go to a footnote from our
thank God,
friends.
I thought I was being snatched.
Right, from our friends at the library at Hurtfew. Please visit them at hurtfew.wikispaces.com. And these are the Johannites, and they are machine breakers, an illegal organization which emerged in the laboring classes in northern England in about the year 1812, in a time of great economic hardship, mainly comprised of artisans and craftsmen whose livelihoods were threatened by the rise of industrial machinery. They banded together secretly under the name of Johannites to break machines, commit arson, and incite other rebellions. Their choice of name reflects their claim to be loyal followers of John Usclas. Technically, the Raven King was technically, in their eyes, still king of northern England, and they used his Raven in Flight banner as their own symbol. And this is based in history on a similar movement, the Luddites, and you can check them out as well. So do you like this idea that Mr. Norrell's going to use just this BS to shut down the book? He's like, hey, it'll get these people to riot more if you let Strange publish his book.
It seems mighty inconvenient for Mr. Strange, who's been agitating for the Raven King the whole time, and now these guys who are rabble-rousing against the government are also aligning themselves with the Raven King. It's a bad time to be pro-Raven King.
Right. Now, there isn't much humor in this episode, but one funny bit of humor is when they bring this up to Norrell, they're like, haven't you been reading the papers? He's like, no, he hadn't heard of these guys at all. And we leave this scene, and Mr. Norrell goes back to his library at Hanover Square, and he's kind of bragging that he did this, like it was all his idea. And he says to Childermass, you heard of the Johannites, right? And Childermass, just like Childermass is the opposite. He didn't want to look dumb, so he's like, yeah, of course I've heard of them. But you know who likes this idea probably the most of everybody? LaSalle's.
God, that guy is a total dick.
Yeah, right. Let's continue. No language, Catfish. So back up at the Strange residence, Arabella's brother. Remember, we saw him back in the first episode. He comes to visit.
Yeah, and Strange is like, this is a bad time. And so it's like, wait, you didn't send any notification? I guess he's not expecting this guy to show up. And then, of course, there's bad news.
Oh, it's terrible news.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why has it? Strange has already revived some people. Why is he waiting around to revive her? We all know in any kind of situation like this, the feeling is when people revive somebody and they turn out bad, they're like their answer always is they weren't freshly dead enough. So why is Strange waited?
Well, remember in the third episode about how those Italian soldiers came back, and that reminds me of hashtag. Sometimes dead is better.
Sometimes dead is better. Yeah, Pet Cemetery. That's what I'm talking about. That's one of the ones where it's like the fresher is better though.
Yeah, but I think, remember, Jonathan Strange spent like 3 days in that windmill with those dead Italians, and so you could understand why he may be like, there's got to be a better way to do this, because Lady Pole.
I can.
Lady Pole didn't seem, you didn't have to spit in Lady Pole's mouth as far as he knew to get her to not speak the language of hell.
Oh, well, that's a good point. It's curious to wonder how far away they are from Norrell.
Right. Well,
because in the end, he's like, I've been waiting 7 days.
Arabella's brother Henry. He is shocked that Jonathan Strange is even suggesting this. He's like, this isn't right. You can't be doing this.
And I'm surprised he's not more strident, considering he's a man of the cloth.
Well, he says, I believe in the resurrection, of Christ.
Yeah, but he says that later. He doesn't say that now. He sort of lets him dither around until it comes to day 8, and he's like, no mas.
Well, he had that back and forth. He's like, she is my flesh and blood.
Right.
And Jonathan Strange was like, well, she's my heart and soul.
I know. Oh.
So, maybe you let Jonathan try something. I don't know.
So then we go back to Norrell, and actually I disagree with you. I think Childermass knows everything. But he's like, yeah, I do, but what, number one, why do you know about them? And number two, why do you care? Because he knows he doesn't care about anything except for magic.
Well, Childermass is upset with Norrell that he listens so much to Mr. LaSalle's. He calls him on it right now. And Mr. Norrell's like, hey, it was you who told me to use Drawlight and LaSalle's to spread my word of magic.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you had to trust a moron.
Hey, so here's where, once again, Mr. Norrell could have his beginning act of redemption. Childermass tells Norrell that Arabella has gone out. She went out for the snow and caught a chill, and she's dead. And Mr. Norrell's like, Mr. Strange will feel that very badly.
Does he bother to even send a condolence card? No.
Oh, no. And in fact, we're going to later see that as Jonathan Strange reaches out to him, he doesn't respond. Oh, just painful. So back with Jonathan Strange and Arabella, he grabs his knife and he considers doing that Italian zombie soldier stuff.
Right. But then he realized they'd cut some cheese on it.
No,
and then if she came back, she'd be part human, part cheese.
Sometimes dead is cheddar.
That was by the way, a Fly reference. Right. The Fly.
All right, so he writes his first letter to Mr. Norrell, and we see LaSalle's reading it, and Jonathan Strange is throwing himself down. He says, help me do for my wife what you did for Lady Pole. I'll quit magic. I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah,
I'll just do it.
I'm not gonna write nothing.
And we see Mr. Norrell in his scolding / teaching fez, and this is where it really gets rough. You know what I mean? Ugh. And so,
right, and this is the part where someone says, so this is where we first hear about it, and it's odd. So I'm glad we had that first part there. Now that you mention it, that he says some people say that he was the one who killed his wife.
Right. Yeah. The word has spread. There's rumors that he has a second wife, and of course he did have a wife and a Moss Oak A. And so there's a really great, fun written bit here where Mr. Norrell's thinking, maybe I should, and LaSalle says, yeah, maybe you should use this as a way to stop publishing his book. And Childermass is like, no. Mr. Norrell was going to say, maybe I could think of a way to help. And there's a great close-up on Norrell's face, and you see both sides, quote unquote, the angel and devil. He's like, well, I could help, or I could use this to stop the book. And it's, this scene is going to get ugly and terrible.
And then LaSalle
soon.
pulls the old, servant card.
Oh my God. Could we please talk without the servants present? Oh.
That is cold.
Oh, cold.
Now, what's interesting here is we thought that Childermass was trying to get to the bottom of things last episode.
Right.
And maybe because of all the things that have happened this episode, seems like he's not really trying to get to the bottom of anything this episode.
Right.
He's kind of has given that up.
Well, Childermass is like, no, let's talk with the servants present. And he's trying to talk Mr. Norrell into helping. He's like, the two of you together, I'm sure you could figure out what went amiss with Lady Pole, and you could confirm that you could bring her about without madness. And Mr. Norrell, he comes down on the wrong side here, Catfish.
Well, let's put it this way. He knows there's no way to bring her back without causing trouble. So he's in a bad position either way.
Oh, true. And Norrell's like, but here's two things. Norrell's like, he has the LaSalle position. He's like, boy, as soon as his wife dies, the first thought Jonathan Strange has is of black magic. And so LaSalle is like, yes, this is good. But then Norrell, this is where you have that glimmer of hope from Norrell's like, but perhaps Childermass is right. If I just explained exactly what we were talking in last episode, Catfish, he's like, if I just explained to Strange the danger of doing it, Strange wouldn't want to do it.
Right.
But LaSalle's has to shut that down, and in the most cold way possible.
Right, but he doesn't need it anyway. I mean, he doesn't need to listen to LaSalle. He's weak.
But LaSalle, listen to this argument, which is pretty good. All the good you've done for English magic, all our work, all we have strived for, your goodness is being used against you. He's like, listen, if you could write to him if you want to, but I could not in all conscience stand by and see you inflict such damage on your cause. I fear I can no longer be your friend.
Well, he totally just said it's either him or me. It's either all your friends or me.
Right, you could have right. Catfish, not. And so we saw that in that heartbreaking scene last week where Mr. Norrell was going to Jonathan Strange and just trying to do anything to get him to stay.
Right.
And you could see he desperately wanted a friend, and now that quote unquote his only friend is Mr. LaSalle. And he has a fear to lose.
Strange wasn't really mean to Norrell last week, but he shut him down pretty clearly.
He shut him down. And so, Catfish, it is time.
Oh, good. It's been a minute.
For my first nominee for Magician of the Week.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
And I think it's going to get... How many people were on Team LaSalle last week?
How many people were on Team LaSalle?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mr. Norrell.
Right? Okay, that's good.
Right.
So my first nominee for Magician of the Week is Henry LaSalle.
Okay.
He may be an a-hole, and I don't mean as in Moss Oak a-hole. He could be an a-hole, but he was able to make Childermass disappear.
Well, wait, hold on.
Yeah?
He also made Drawlight disappear.
Right, there we go. 2 nominees. What a powerful magician. Everybody hashtag Team LaSalle.
He made both those guys disappear. Drawlight permanently, not from the episode, but from a Respectable Life.
Oh, say that again.
Respectable Life.
All right. So, Jonathan Strange, he is really quite cuckoo. He's going to do it. He's tried so many times to summon a fairy. He loves Arabella. He's got to try it one more time.
Right.
One more time. He lights the candle. He says the secret words. We hear the creaking of the house settling. We see the candle flicker. But because he can't see anything, he just assumes all hope is lost. But of course, it has worked.
It has worked.
He has been able to constantly summon the gentleman with thistle-down hair.
But once again, when he does it, he doesn't hear him or see him.
Right. Well, that is...
Stephen makes a good point. Because man with thistle-down hair is like, what a moron. He's trying to get me here. And Stephen's like, yeah, you are here.
Right. But...
No.
Right. But and Thistledown's even like, okay, all right. But listen, the only important thing is that he can only see and hear me, and I choose who can see and hear me. So obviously, when Norrell, called him that first time in episode 1, he chose to let Norrell see him. Ever since then, he doesn't let anybody see him but Norrell, Arabella, and Steve.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so he is forced to be called,
right?
But he doesn't have to. He has to be there.
And Thistle-down is a complete.
It seems like it'd kind of be boring.
Thistle-down
he didn't talk.
God, he is the worst. He's like, he's like, here.
I thought he was your guy. I thought you loved Thistle-down.
Move these pages of the book. There's no breeze. He'll get confused. Move it, Stephen. And Stephen, stand up for Stephen. Stephen doesn't do any of this bull crap, so he moves the pages.
Oh yeah,
of the
let
book.
me stand up for Stephen now. Oh wow,
Thistledown's like watching
really
him trying to do magic is like someone sit down to eat dinner with their jacket on backwards. He's like, pinch his neck. He'll think it's a gnat.
For such an evil guy, the man with thistledown hair is really bad at practical jokes.
Right, he's
super bad.
Very very petty. Excuse me, very petty.
He's like, oh, you know what you should do? Grab one of his nose hairs and pull it out, and he'll sneeze and he won't know why.
This guy, this is like dancing on somebody's grave. He got the magician's wife, and now he's just being a complete jerk. I mean, come on.
Hey, tie his shoelaces together.
Oh,
He'll fall over. Oh, that's a good one.
I saw the 3 Fairy Stooges do this one time. Let's see.
Put some toilet paper on the bottom of his shoe.
And poor Stephen, I don't know how to feel about him, but he doesn't do any of this.
I hate Stephen.
You don't
hate him. I do. I hate him.
Oh, come on.
I hate him.
I think Stephen is just defeated. He has given up. He's a bit like Reek on our infamous show Game of Thrones.
I hate him too.
Well, okay.
So, I mean, what ifs?
All right, so we are just reaching the boiling point between Arabella's brother Henry and Jonathan. Jonathan Strange has said, hey, I've heard the Raven King brought somebody back from the dead. It had something to do with a tree or maybe dogs. And Jonathan goes for his last attempt. He's going to do the infamous bring back the zombie Italian soldiers.
Right, but he's going to wait this time to make sure the knife is clean.
But it can't work because this is just a piece of wood. You can't bring back to life a piece of enchanted wood.
Yeah, the only thing you can do is paint it red with your blood.
Right, and this is just painful. He's got crazy eyes. Look at
Well,
Jonathan's
they're sort of
face.
forlorn eyes. I think let's save the crazy eye description for later.
All right.
When he actually gets crazy eyes.
Well, he's definitely got circles around his eyes as he bleeds on her.
Uh-huh.
And he writes yet another letter to Mr. Norrell. Mr. Norrell will not respond. Oh, God, how terrible. He's waiting for a response out in the cold. Mm-hmm. He gets nothing. Mr. Norrell, God, he could switch to the side of the good almost at any moment here. You know what I mean?
He really, this is his seven days teetering on the edge.
And we've reached the edge. Jonathan Strange, he's like, I've written him, and he won't respond. He won't tell me. Nothing from Norrell. And he finally decides to let go. This is heartbreaking.
Well, if Norrell showed up, do you think Norrell would know what he was faced with here?
Do you think Norrell could tell that this was a moss oak and this was not?
I don't think so.
I don't know. That's a great call. But Norrell would have helped him get to this point, which...
Again, so I'm saying, like, what would be the difference if Norrell showed up at this point? Even if he explained to him the fairies, he couldn't...
Well, how about that? At least he would be human. He would be a nice guy if he showed up. You're right. It wouldn't change...
Yeah, it wouldn't change anything.
Wouldn't change
at this
anything,
point,
but...
I think he already had his chance, and this was not it.
Like...
So then Strange is like, look, give me another few days to think about things. I'll figure this out.
But Henry won't have it.
No.
We
Dunzo.
We see Jonathan cry, and he comes to his wife, and he's telling her, you're the very reason why I picked up magic.
Yeah.
I just did it to see the smile on
your face. He was like, you were my oak. Oh, bad choice of words.
Terrible choice of words. Oh... And so this leads to the...
This is very sad. When he basically says everything he did for her. He found a hobby for her. Right. And that hobby turned into the very thing that destroyed her. even though it was
Well,
really
he
his hubris.
doesn't realize this.
I know, but it was his hubris.
Right. And so we see the funeral. We go out to this. I love they have this recurring shot of this cemetery. We first saw it when he and Arabella in episode 1 had a scene here where he was about to propose and she said, "Don't propose." Then later in episode 1, we saw this is where Jonathan Strange buried his father.
Right.
And now he's going to the family plot near this giant old tree.
Got it.
And he's laying his wife to rest.
Oof, that is super tough. Super tough. So now at this point, you're like, well, what is he going to do? Probably nothing. You can't imagine he's going to go back to magic at this point, right?
No. Would he even finish his book? We find out later he did, but oh, how terrible. But back at Starcross Hall, Stephen has shown up, and it turns out Sir Walter...
Oh, yeah, because he's such a nice guy, and he wants to help out.
Sir Walter Pole sent Stephen there because he's like, if my wife finds out about Arabella's death, she might go crazy. So, Stephen,
She might go crazy? Wow. Okay, right. So she goes, and she tries to say something like, it's again, Stephen's always covering. She's like, oh, I can't get to her. And he's like, yeah, because she's dead.
Right.
Dick.
And so Honeyfoot and Segundus come to Stephen, and I don't know why they ask Stephen for permission, but they say, hey, we've noticed that Lady Pole's ramblings are like old fairy tales. We want to induce her to ramble more and see if we can put this whole mystery together.
Which is funny because Segundus knows for sure that whatever Lady Pole is laboring under, Stephen is laboring under it, maybe not in an extreme way, but in the same way.
Oh, yeah, amen. Yeah, it's tough. And Stephen... why does he say no? Why does he not encourage them? Is he just given up? He's given up. That's why that's why I feel sympathy for Stephen. He's complicit in some of these terrible acts, but it's like he's given up. He's been years under the gentleman with thistle-down hair.
And the reason why I don't like him is because, again, here, he's acting like a dick.
Well, how about this? He's always afraid it could get worse.
How could it get much worse?
Well, let's be honest. It could get much worse. At least he's got a bit of himself still. Arabella doesn't have any of herself anymore.
Yeah, well, Lady Pole's barely hanging on, but no. She's hung on a lot longer than I predicted she would.
You really don't remember the book too much.
I really do not remember the book that well.
All right. Oops. Okay, so let's jump ahead here. And when we come back from commercial break, and the commercials in this episode really were at painful times for me. But we see that Jonathan Strange is coming back to his London house, and he's finished the first volume of his novel, The History of Magic.
Wow. Everyone's just talking about history like they're the only ones who knows the history. I'd say magic, strange style. Or I'd call it strange magic.
So Sir Walter Pole comes, and this was a bit of dark humor. Jonathan Strange is like, I would like you to give this etching of the King's Road to your wife. I think it'll help her. And Walter Pole looks at this painting, which is it's not
pretty
like
creepy,
right? He's like, oh, that'll
it's my style.
Comfort her.
It's kind of Escher. I love Escher.
Right. And so, of course, Walter Pole has heard about the Raven King and how it's stirring these riots up north. And he sees these paintings, and he realizes that Strange is continuing on with magic and his book.
Yeah, and also Strange says, "Listen, this is the end, right? Because we haven't gone far enough, right? Oh, we're doing these little piddly little things, and we know that magic was super powerful back in the past, right?
Yeah,
and we're just doing these little flashes, they're parlor games, really. It's really no better than using the magic to wash clothes, according to Strange.
Draw light was right. There are a couple funny things in here. One is that Sir Walter Pole tells Strange, he's like, gosh, Norrell goes crazy every time he hears mention of your book. And that brings the biggest smile to Jonathan's face. He's like, Norrell's in agony every time you mention your book. And Strange is like, agony, but he says it with this just insane grin on his face. And then, of course, when he's talking about what magic have we done, we've done piddly wink magic. We've done nothing. What is brought up again but the sea beacons?
The sea beacons. And we find out here that they're still not done.
Oh, man.
I tell ya. It still is not completed them. I'm still not sure what the sea beacons are supposed to do, but whatever they're supposed to do, they ain't doing it.
Let me ask you this,
Talk to
Catfish,
me.
since you don't remember the book, will the sea beacons be finished, yes or no?
Well, I mean...
That's the end of the book. And then the sea beacons were completed. The end.
Unless Napoleon comes back for a third time, I can't see why the sea beacons actually matter, for God's sake.
Let's do
Finally, they're complete. Okay, sure.
I did think this scene takes a bit of a cold turn, and I thought it was a bit cold of Strange, when he gets so upset. He's like, Norrell has poisoned your mind to the Raisin King. He's literally poisoned. He's done everything. He's like, have you not thought of your wife, sir? Have you not thought of why she's gone mad? And I, well, even though Jonathan's right, I thought it was a bit cold to bring up this poor guy's crazy wife.
Well, you know what? He's super peed right now. Super peed.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, because he's been this whole time. Everyone stopped him at every turn, and again, we go back to the beginning. This could have been a 2-part show if Norrell just said, "Listen, fairies are bad. Here's what I did. It's bad news. That's bad, horrible juju."
It would have been a 2 episode. It would have been a 1 episode.
Good work.
And that's why we don't do magic anymore.
The end.
So back at Starcross Hall, they're gonna encourage Lady Pole to tell her crazy tales. Mm-hmm. And Stephen, once again, it's hard to stay on his team when he's like, "Listen, Arabella Strange doesn't know what's going on with her. She's happy. Happy?
And yet you still are on Stephen's team."
He's like, "Look, we should be thankful. We've still got each other." Like, what? And even Lady Pole's right. She's like, "Stephen, he's poisoned your mind."
There's a lot of mind poisoning going on here.
Right, a lot of mind poisoning. Maybe that should be my second nominee for Magician of the Week.
Uh-huh.
The gentleman with thistle-down hair for excellent mind poisoning. My second nominee, because he's succeeded. It is very successful.
Okay.
And so, they encourage, Segundus asks Lady Pole, he says, "Tell me what is most troubling you." And she starts her rambling, her craziness. She mentions good old Cole Tom Blue.
Right, and Honeyfoot's like, "Hold on, I can find this."
He must know all these little folk tales
Right,
very well.
Right. He wrote some of them down because he loves them.
Right, and so he's beginning to put it together. And
what I love is that he says, "No, you're being too specific." And I'm like, was she being too specific? And then when she goes on, it's like, I feel like she's being just as specific as she was before.
No. But I think Honeyfoot is right. He's like, when she tries to tell it directly, rather than saying, Arabella Strange has been taken to Lost Hope, the Fairy Kingdom. Like if she were to say, "My friend is in trouble," like if there's a way you can kind of hedge around it, maybe she won't go so
All
far.
right.
At least that's what I took him to mean. But of course, yeah, she's just as crazy as always. And there is a
What's that?
Knock at the door.
Oh, boy.
And it's great that this is intercut. This is a wonderfully written, wonderfully
It is,
edited
because you know what
show.
it makes me wonder? No one is paying attention to it.
No, to the
except for
knocking on the
Stephen
door.
and her. So you wonder, is this happening for realsies or what?
Oh no! Right? Yeah, you're always kind of in this. We as a viewer,
Right,
you're a
and
bit
really,
between.
it's because Segundus and Honeyfoot are like they're on the warpath here, so they're not really paying attention to the knock, but it's happening for real life. And they figure out that she's talking about a story from the point of view of the fairies.
Right, a fairy tale from the point of view of the fairy, so it's a human tale. Did you like that twist, Catfish?
I did like that twist.
But how will this be able to help them solve the mystery?
Well, I don't want to ruin it for anyone else.
Okay. Do you remember that part?
No, but I have some suppositions.
Okay. All right.
So they show up, and you know what I'm surprised at?
What?
I thought that this was Madhouse for one. Madhouse for one.
We now have double occupancy.
More room at the inn.
They're going to have to hire some help to take care
They
of
might have
all
to.
the patients, because who
might have to.
has shown up? We had heard earlier in the episode that some of those people at the House of Commons were talking about how there was a madman in the north talking about the return of the Raven
And
King.
we knew who that was.
Yeah,
Our
I
old boy
wonder who
Vinculus.
that could be. And sure enough, Vinculus, this actor, Paul Kaye, another great actor.
Right, who showed up in the second episode of Humans.
Right, I'm going to say this guy has got it down. This guy doesn't have to... If there's a part that calls for somebody crazy... He is great. And so, wait, there is yet another bit of prophecy here. Now, I want you to pay attention, folks. He looks at Secundus and he says, I've met you before.
Right.
Now, listeners, I want you to see if you can figure out when Vinculus has met Secundus before. And then he says to Stephen, he says, the rain shall make a door for me, and I shall go through it. Who do you think he's talking about there, the Catfish?
I think he's talking about the Mr. Strange.
No!
No?
The Raven King.
Oh, the Raven
Well, maybe.
King.
I don't know. You're right. Maybe.
All right.
But he is nuts. In fact, he likes getting wet.
Right? He loves laughing and pointing at people.
Right. When you laugh at your own jokes, it's not so good. You know?
I know. Okay.
All right. So, Sir Walter Pole.
So,
he
is this
doesn't know
scene number 4 about the book?
He doesn't know what
Get
to
rid of
do,
the
so
book?
he brings this drawing of the Raven Kings to Mr. Norrell. And LaSalle's is like, hey, I've talked to my man at Murray's Publishing House. We can't stop it that way. And this...
Right, and Norrell's like, well, I want my magic cord. I want to be able to accuse people of stuff.
Magic Court, this week on Magic Court.
Exactly.
The plaintiff says that the defendant has used disreputable magic. This is I wonder if this is foreshadowing. Childermass, he's begging Norrell to quit the feud. He's like, you've got to stop this Philly feud. It may not end well for either of you guys.
Right, good point. Childermass, always a smart guy. LaSalle, always just a DB.
Team LaSalle, hey. And then we have yet another commercial. Oh,
Boo.
People, you're gonna want to, and nobody. Let me say, if buy the Blu-ray DVD, I want to buy it and give it out to friends and family. This show has just been great. Amelia, I haven't seen 7, so I don't know if it stuck the landing, but this show is just great, and you won't have to suffer through another ad for the Graham Norton show. As wonderful as it is,
Graham Norton,
the biggest name in British television. And so did you like that we cut from this and we see Childermass is doing some magic. He's become a shadow.
Oh, I thought he'd become a shrubbery.
So Jonathan Strange, though, he's like Mr. Secundus. He can tell when there's magic nearby. And he calls out Childermass. And he keeps calling Childermass. He's like, does your boss know that you do magic? And I think Childermass doesn't really care, do you?
No, but it's interesting. This is a really interesting scene because it's weird the way that it turns out.
What do you think?
Well, in that Childermass seems to believe that it doesn't really matter who's right and who's wrong, as long as there's one person who's right and one person who's wrong. He doesn't care who he is.
Well, would you believe that he thinks it's a healthy debate? He doesn't say it. I'm kind of putting thoughts into Childermass's head.
I guess that
Maybe
is what
his
he's
thought
saying.
process
And
is...
the interesting thing is the difference between him and Norrell is that yes, that he thinks it's a healthy debate, and it is one that should stay healthy. In other words, there should be both sides should have their feelings put about.
Well, he saw that picture that Sir Walter Pole brought of the King's Road, and he loved it. He's looking at more drawings.
Well, we know he likes art because he stole that nice stitching that Lady Pole did. He's a big art fan. You look in his single room there. He's got art all over the walls.
On his Finder Fairy Tinder page, he's art appreciation.
Exactly. So Strange just gives it up. Hey, you want to go on the roads?
This is how you
Boom,
enter the King's Roads.
Do it.
You do these 2 spells. That's how you enter through the mirrors.
And then he does say an interesting thing, which made me think of something else, where Strange says they were there all the time, but something has recently opened them, which I just thought no one knew how to get through them.
That's the way I took it, too.
But I think what he's saying now is they've been opened because, we're left to infer that they're open because the man with the thistle-down hair has sort of been called, and so they've been open because of that.
Or have they been open because you know who is coming?
Well, I think it's all part of the thing. I mean, it almost feels like, the Raven King needed someone to
that's a good
prepare the way for him, that there needed to be this hubbub and to do.
Now, Childermass calls Jonathan Strange a bad pupil. He'd like, I'd be even a worse pupil than you. Was Jonathan Strange a bad pupil, Catfish?
Yeah, no, I disagree that he was a bad one. He's right. You can ask questions. And Childermass doesn't go, oh, you know what, you're right. He just ignores his excuse. I'll tell you what, Let's make a deal.
Well, I would say that at a certain point, if your teacher keeps saying, we shouldn't study that, that's not important, leave that alone, maybe it is a bad pupil to ignore their teacher.
But there can also be a bad teacher because just like when you're teaching a child, you have to explain things. You can't just say, don't go in there. It's like, don't go in there because there's a pit in the middle of the floor and you'll fall 50 feet to your death.
When I have Bubba Jr., it's going to be, Bubba, can I go in there? Don't go in there. But, no buts, bad pupil, Norrell Light School of Magic.
Wow.
Okay, and so everything was good. Childermass and Strange are shaking hands, saying, all right, we're going to be friends, and everything seems like it's okay. I saw some people on Twitter saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if these two could team together? 'Twas not
Team up.
Team up. But, so anyway, Strange is talking about how he's going to publish his book, and Childermass shouldn't have said anything. He's just like, heads up, Mr. Norrell's going to make sure you can't publish your book. And that just snaps. And this is where the episode really takes off for me. There isn't much time left.
Right.
But Strange gets, all this stuff he's been holding in, all this anger. He's like, God damn Norrell, God damn him. He's like, I wrote to him. What have I ever done for him, Childermass? What did I do to him apart from be frank and pleasant? And this is what you said. Even his diss of his book, well, really wasn't that bad. He's like, this book is a tribute to my wife. He jumps through the mirror and, oh, hell yeah, it is on. Let's get ready to rumble.
He comes out, and I love it. He is just incensed.
I'm incensed too. Let's get it on.
I know, he is just throwing stuff all over, and there's your boy LaSalle.
Team LaSalle, run away.
Scared.
Wouldn't you be? How come he's not using magic here? That's one thing I didn't understand. Like maybe turn LaSalle into a frog or something.
You would love that.
No way.
No, sometimes you like to get your hands on somebody, and he's very earthy with his magic anyway. So first he's going to start with his hands.
And even LaSalle's like, hey, Mr. Strange, have you not considered the hurt you've done to him? And Strange is like, I wrote to him to help me get my wife back. He didn't even reply. And then he sees that Norrell is actually there. What was the magic? Why won't you tell me?
Right? And then, Norrell just goes back upstairs. He's like, I'm going to let my boys handle this.
And I love the music in this scene because it is like, it's...
Oh, maybe we'll hear more from Double M on this.
Well, he recorded his stuff before he saw this episode, but this is just great.
Damn it.
Because Strange is totally unhinged, and I love the smile he gets as he's being thrown out of the house. He goes, I get it. I know why you won't tell me. And once again, even outside, you know how you were always like, let's use magic to mess up
he just
the Duke of Wellington when he pisses off. Strange doesn't use magic. He uses the old kid trick. Let's throw rocks in this guy's house.
And then the cops come, and I people don't like it when we use current events here.
No,
but
they don't.
The guy does seem to be restrained, and the one dude decides this is a perfect time to just keep punching him in the stomach.
That reminds me of the great song by MWA.
MWA.
Magicians with Attitude.
Oh, man. Yeah, right. When they said...
disrespect the police.
Darn those constables.
And so Strange has been thrown...
Oh, and who do we see in the jail? Amazing.
What a great coincidence.
Man.
Name who it is, Catfish.
It is Mr. Drawlight.
Prisoner 47. Christopher Drawlight.
Well, I want to say this. He seems to be in a prison. He seems to be in a cell with him and some ladies, so maybe they're playing some cards. Obviously, let's be clear. But no, seriously, you can see he's not in the cell by himself.
No, there are other people. I didn't see there were women.
Yeah, there was a woman in this jail with him. And I will say this, while you're looking to see, I'll say this.
We're going to look at this.
Is that obviously in these days there was even though this is a crappy jail cell, it's probably the rich people jail cell, and then there's a poor people jail cell where it's just horrific. But again, when you are in the cell.
Oh, there is a woman in. Wait a minute. Do you see who the woman is in there, Catfish, with him?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
It's the lady who wanted to pay Jonathan Strange to kill her husband and her mother-in-law.
Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. The greatest Easter egg. I couldn't have told.
That is nice.
I could not have told unless I paused it. Oh my.
That is a super good catch. Well, I would say this.
It's Mrs. Bulworth. Hold on.
Mrs.
Bulworth, another nominee for Magician of the Week. She got herself thrown in a co-ed prison. Mrs. Bulworth, my third nominee.
And now that Drawlight started looking rugged. You know, he's kind of brawny now.
I think Drawlight wouldn't want to be locked up in there with her. She's the one who he was ripping off. She's got
kind of a salty tongue. I don't know.
Oh, my God, that is great. That moves this episode to a 9.5. Oh, so good. All right, so we see Grant, the fellow soldier, the good guy soldier, come in, and he is trying to, even Wellington, they all want to help dude. Strange. They know Strange is our boy,
and he wants to help him out.
This is where if
they're
it
going to
try
him for murder by witchcraft.
If they can find a law, if they can find a law that'll
work. Which is like, hold on, okay, I understand. I broke in the dude's house and I threatened him, but what? Who is he peed off here?
Oh well, all the wrong people.
All right.
And so Strange, he's like, look, he's tried to do it a million times. This is the time. He goes, I know I summoned a fairy at Windsor Castle. I've just got to get this fairy. I just couldn't see him. Whenever I do it, nothing seems to work. And this is where he's putting the pieces together. And this is also where, we could be really turning to a whole lot of trouble. He's like, why could the person I was with see him and I couldn't? And Grant is like, well, was he a magician? He's like, no, he wasn't a magician. He was mad.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
I would have gone through a few other things first. I would have gone, okay, well, let's see, he's playing the piano. Let me try playing the piano. He had a beard. He had a long beard. Let me try a beard. Oh, he was in a nice robe.
Right.
Let me wear a robe.
Maybe I'd give myself blindness because he was blind.
He goes right to being nuts.
Right. And so,
even Drawlight knows that's
hears
that's a bad
this
idea.
He's like,
He's like, I'm in a prison
Can
cell.
I be transferred to a different wing of the prison, please?
No, he's like, I'm glad I'm in the cell with the woman who wants to kill everybody she knows rather than him. Right. So then they do a really cool thing here, of course, where Strange is looking, and we do know that it's not just windows, but any sort of
mirrors,
standing water, right? Not just
anything
mirrors,
with a reflection.
With a reflection. So he's like, I'm going to become a magician. I'm going to do it now. And then they're like, the guy's like, all right, open the door. Right, this is crazy. Opens the door.
Right.
And who's there?
Squadoosh.
Nobody. Just a few rats.
Oh, my Lord.
But those are unseen. Just picture those. There are rats in there. There has to be rats.
Jonathan Strange, he was talking to himself. He's like, how can I become mad? Would wandering the woods drive me mad?
Wow.
And this, we have ended every episode, Catfish, all first four, on Mr. Norrell. In this episode, we end instead on Grant as his face. But we end every episode pretty much the same way, with somebody looking and thinking to themselves,
oh, shit.
This isn't good. Oh, my goodness gracious. And so that, it's kind of repetitive, maybe predictable. Do you think somebody's going to end next week?
You know what it is?
Are they going to end the next two episodes with somebody going, uh-oh?
No, you know what it is? The people are like waiting to get the script. It's like this. It's like the Live from New York. It's Saturday night. Right. Who gets to do the end bit?
Right, the end look of, oh crap, it's all gone to hell.
Yeah.
And so that ends chapter 5. All Arabella. Once again, Catfish, you're solid with an 8. It was slow. It did have a middle, slow, sad section. But hopefully you're like me. I loved this ending.
Oh yeah. No, this was great. This was great. I did love it. Again, it was a little slow at points. Maybe I took some points off just because I was super sad about Arabella, and that's got nothing to do with the episode. It just has to do with the way it affected me emotionally. But still, this is a bang-up show, and we only have 2 episodes left. There's a lot to get to in 2 episodes, I guess.
There sure is.
Even though I forget.
All right, now, Catfish, I'm going to go back to the book. I don't want to spoil. Hopefully this.
Not the book.
I'm not going to spoil anything.
Oh no!
For people who want to read this novel after they see this wonderful miniseries,
right? Especially if they have a hard time getting to sleep.
But we've already kind of talked about how the first third of the book. This is one book, but it's divided into 3 volumes. The first volume.
Yes.
The first volume is entitled what? Of course, but Mr. Norrell. Volume 2 is entitled Jonathan Strange.
Got it.
Now, we just did the last chapter. This episode was titled Chapter 5, Arabella. And sure enough, in the novel, it's Chapter 44 is titled Arabella.
Got it.
And that's on page 491 that chapter begins. So we've done
boy.
about 500 pages over 5 episodes.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember what the third volume is titled, Catfish?
Is it titled Uh-oh?
Yes, a bit, but in other words, that is probably the implication we can take from the title. But the actual title of the third volume, the final third of the book, is John Usklask.
The
name the Raven King
Raven
gave himself.
Okay.
Uh-oh. And so, once again, I don't want to spoil. I don't want to get people's hopes up. I think if you like the series, you'll like it so far. Just for me personally.
Got it.
Next week's episode, and specifically actually the beginning of next week's episode, of the 6 I've seen, oh man.
Good. Well, we got something to look forward to next week.
All right, and next week's episode is entitled...
Tell me what it's called.
Okay, now do you remember this from our footnote from a week ago, Catfish? Next week's episode is entitled The Black Tower.
Well, uh-oh.
Yes, that's works. Is the subtitle. It is the footnote. It's like the footnote to the episode should be So
now, okay, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, this is the point where usually by this point you've nominated at least 3 or 4 people for your Magician of the Week.
I have. I've nominated 3. Do you have a nominee?
I don't. What I do is I don't like to spoil it for the viewers. Okay. I just tell them at the end who my Magician of the Week is.
Well, we're going to get to all our listeners' feedback. We're going to get to our new iTunes review.
Whoa.
And we're going to get to our Magicians of the Week. But right now, let's go to our special guest. It's a guy I like to call Double M.
Double M?
Matt Murdick from Podcast Winterfell. Guys, you are really going to enjoy this. This is a segment on the music of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Bubba and Catfish. Is that the way I'm supposed to say that? Anyway, this is Matt, and I hope you know that a lot of us are enjoying your reviews of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I think that this series is one of the funnest times I've had in summertime television. And I know that the 3 of us have communicated a little bit over Twitter about the music in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and how you guys have compared it a little bit to the Harry Potter thing. And I would actually say that musically speaking, that's fairly close, because John Williams in the original score, I think it was John Williams, did a lot of things that were very conventional for what we think of as magic in terms of scoring the magical side of things. And I feel like the composers here have done so as well. And there's 2 key elements that I want to focus on in terms of magic and why certain musical things sound magical or help us to get into that magical frame. And the 2 key things that always seem to ring through as being kind of magical to us as viewers are the instrumentation that is used and the meter in which it is placed, the time signature. Now, as far as the instrumentation goes, bell percussion is one of those things that really draws your attention and places you into kind of an otherworldly place, a magical place. I'm talking about uses of glockenspiel, for instance, or even sometimes harp, if plucked or if used properly, can create a magical kind of experience. And we hear harp used a lot in this show, and we hear glockenspiel used a lot in this show during magical portions of the episodes. Now, as far as time signature goes, 3/4 time, or the waltz time, is often associated with magical things. And I think if you go back to the Romantic period of composition, and I'm talking like Tchaikovsky, Wagner, those kind of composers, that was where it was really established, because we started to get these huge ballets and operas and tales of magical places where composers needed to convey something magical happening or whatever. As far as instrumentation goes, I can certainly cite the Sugar Plum Fairy in Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker. Listen to the instrument that is playing the main melody at the top of that. And, of course, it's a Sugar Plum Fairy. That's kind of magical, right? Because Claire is in a different place. And the waltz time is often associated with various ballets and various operas where magical things are happening within those contexts. I can't really cite one right off the top of my head, but I know that I've heard it in those kind of things. So I thought what we would do is look at some of these clips, at least in the first 2 episodes, and decide if my theory holds up. And I'm going to present you the very opening scene from the pilot episode as an example, because when Secundus is trying to do magic, we hear a lot of glockenspiel and harp. And then when he goes outside and we see Childermass, and then Childermass is giving the narrative about the whole thing about magic and how it has been away from the society, we have moved into a waltz-type tempo, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or something similar to that speed. I'm not sure if I have the speed exactly right, but take a listen to this first clip that I have for you.
Some years ago, there was in the city of York a society of magicians.
So again, you have the glockenspiel and the harp while Secundus is trying to give us magic, and then you have that waltz tempo as we get more into the introduction of what is happening in England by Childermass. Now, you might say, well, there's some times where we don't get either of those really with Jonathan Strange in this first episode, but that is because in this first episode, there is a good portion of the episode where Jonathan Strange doesn't even know that he's a magician, right? And so our introduction to him, there's no glockenspiel present. There's no three-quarter time present. Instead, we get this kind of almost Lone Ranger-y kind of da-da-dun, 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 which reminds you of horse galloping. It was very cute of the composers to put that in there. But unlike our introduction to Mr. Norrell, because remember, when Secundus and Honeyfoot find Norrell at his home at Hurtview Abbey, what we find is basically a restatement of what we heard at the beginning. There's a waltz theme presented as Childermass is leading them through to Norrell's library, and there's glockenspiels being played when they first walk in there. So it's essentially all of those magical elements are there for Norrell because he's already a practicing, a tolerable, practical magician. So with Strange, there is no such notion. And here is this clip to show you that there's no glockenspiel or 3/4 time present. Instead, it is 4/4 time.
Well, if that is how the first magician behaves, I dare not think what the second will be like. The Lord be with you.
Yes, sir.
Well done, Henry. You're using your voice much better. More authority.
Now, here is something that I love what the composers did. When Jonathan Strange performs magic for the first time, you still have the staccato string, that da-da-dun, da-da-dun thing going on. But it changes to 3/4 time as he's performing magic for the first time. Take a listen.
Then I draw a circle on the mirror, like this. And then I quarter the circle.
Jonathan, where did you get this nonsense?
From the man under the hedge. Henry, do at least try
Henry,
to...
that is not your ceiling.
But at least I am a magician.
So that motif, that's what we call those kind of little rhythmic or melodic elements that repeat over and over, that da-da-dun, da-da-dun, that is still retaining part of Jonathan Strange's character that we know him as in the first time we meet him, and yet it's transitioning into the fact that he can perform magic by using that motive over a 3/4 time signature as opposed to a 4/4 time signature. So that is excellent. And then finally, I want to go to the Lady Pole episode. That's episode 2, when Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell speak or are introduced for the first time, and Jonathan Strange performs a little magic trick with the placing the paper in the mirror and the reflection out in our world. I love the fact that as he performs it, you get the glockenspiel stuff. And then when him and Norrell start talking about magic, we go into a 3/4 waltz.
Mr. Norrell.
Let the man do his trick, sir.
Nothing would give me greater pleasure. This is one of my own spells.
As instrumentation, and the use of the 3/4 time signature is what gives us a magical feel, what helps give us a magical feel, and it's something that's been done for, almost 200 years now, I guess? 150 years? Let's say 150 years for sure. It's something that's been done often by composers in Western composition. Eastern composition is a whole different thing, of course. But what we most associate film scoring with, of course, is Western composition. So I hope I've demonstrated my theory correct in a way that the music can add just as much to the magical feel of a film as any other element of it. And thanks for taking the time to listen to this, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Double M. That is wonderful. And I have to be honest, because I love the music so much at that very last scene where Strange was attacking Norrell in his house, I kind of am, Matt, I may have to beg you to do some more of this stuff.
It was still value added, though.
True. So, Catfish, we have more members to add into our Respectable Magician Club.
Oh, good.
These are people who, once again, who tweeted us with the hashtag Lost Hope Podcast, and or they give us iTunes reviews. They are the people we call Respectable Magicians. So let's bring them up real quick. Our first new member of the Respectable Magician Club is Mark West. He's at WestMarkWest713. We also have a new Respectable Magician called The Faceless Author, who's at Faceless Author. We have Jane Gastineau, who's sure enough at Jane Gastineau. Matt Papa, who's at Matthew Papa 2, the number 2. We have at Strange Fan 3. That's a great name. And I also have somebody called Boo A-C. That's Boo AC. And they have a Twitter handle that's a bit difficult. You ready? It is at Weird Butt Hat SOK. So,
love it.
Hat suck.
Love it.
So Weird Butt HATSOK. So that is Boo AC. New members of the Respectable Magicians Club.
Thank God they're respectable.
We also have a final new member from the iTunes store. And do you want to read our new iTunes review, Catfish?
I will, and then I'd love to read a tweet out we got just a few hours ago.
All right. Well, read this new iTunes review.
Okay.
Then let's get to everybody's tweets.
JP Soso says,
Yeah.
This podcast is delightfully enchanting.
Ooh,
5
thank
stars.
you. Thank you so much.
I am a
JP.
non-book reader who loves this series.
Oh,
I watched it on
good.
Saturday for the experience and again on Sunday for the details.
Oh, heck yeah.
Whoa.
All right.
Then I eagerly download your podcast on Monday.
Thank you.
Your recaps and footnotes are presented with true wit and insight and help me to experience the episode again in an entirely new way.
Ooh.
Kudos to Bubba and Catfish for a very tolerable, practical, and thoroughly enjoyable podcast.
Wow. Thank you
Wow.
so much. So by giving us that iTunes review, you've joined the Respectable Magicians Club and will be eligible to win whatever prizes we get, plus the infamous footnote bell. Now, Catfish, let's get to some of these great tweets we've got. Why don't you read the first one?
All right. This one is from our old friend, our previously respectable magician at Hey Ref.
Hey, Ref. Yeah.
Sean Gragan.
Love him.
He says, am I the only one seeing parallel between Lascelles' treatment of Drawlight and BBC America treatment of hashtag Lost Hope Podcast?
Now, hold on.
Well, that's a Hey Ref did not know
okay,
before this. And we didn't really tweet it out. Kind of saved us a surprise for this. I mean,
Well, we should wait until we
tweet it out.
see if we actually get anything for it.
That's true. We'll hold on to it. But for now, Hey Ref,
Yeah.
we have been promised some goodies.
Yeah.
But thank you for looking out.
Excellent, excellent. Why don't you read this next tweet from our new member of the Respectable Magician Club, Strange Fan?
That's from at StrangeFan3.
Yeah.
Finished the mini-series and am 3 episodes into hashtag Lost Hope Podcast.
Awesome.
But isn't the style supposed to be Georgian, not Victorian? Now,
Ooh,
this is an interesting
that is a
question.
great
No,
question.
but because here's what I will say.
All right.
The funny thing is I read about this somewhere else.
Okay.
Is that I believe that it's set in the Georgian period, but it's written as if it was written in the Victorian period. In other words, the Georgian period is when it's set.
Right.
But but it would have been like it was written 30 years later in the Victorian period. That's what I remember from reading about this like 5 weeks ago, and I was going to bring it up, but then I thought,
Well, that is a great question. Let me also say, I would say that when you look at some of their London residences for Strange and Norrell, those are kind of, if I understand correctly, those are Georgian kind of townhomes and houses. And
Okay.
I believe. Also, listen, we got so many tweets. Let me read some from our wonderful
Okay, if you have to.
member of the Respectable Magic Club, Maggie, who's at Lesetole6. And let me spell that out. You pronounced it just
I'm
as
sure.
bad.
No, I'm sure I've said it wrong as well, but at least I said it with a little bit more panache.
All right, let's hear you try to say it.
L'étoile.
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 L'étoile. 6. I like that.
Okay.
Anyway, it's at LESETOILES6. And she sent us a couple. She gave tonight's episode 9.6 convenient puddles out of 10. She also said when she saw Drylight in the prison, she was very excited. And she said, can Strange be Magician of the Week? Disappearing through puddles and mirrors Strange is her nominee for Magician of the Week.
But what she doesn't know is, because when he went through that puddle and there was a rat in that puddle, when he came out on the other side, he had whiskers.
Oh, no. I was going to say, when he went through that puddle, he came out all wet. Wah, 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 wah. Catfish, why don't you read these 2 tweets from Double M and Podcast Winterfell?
All right, Double M at Musical Concepts. Double M Matt Murdick says, whoa, 9 out of 10 fairy cons. My heart broke for Strange, but worried he's descending into madness.
Uh-oh.
But I think that's intentional. He wants to.
Yeah, now.
And Podcast Winterfell at Winterfell Pod says, by the way, hashtag Team Segundus Honeyfoot and Lady Pole. Maybe hashtag Team Childermass too. Both hashtag Strange and Norrell are now bad, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. Maybe he'll be willing to join me in Team LaSalle. Our good friend Tracy, that's Tracy with 2 E's at the end, and know why. She's at Trace E 2EZ. And she gave a couple of goes. She said this was a sad episode of Strange and Norrell, but thanks to Catfish, she kept giggling at all the silly pants. So last week, Catfish, you ruined the episode for
that's
her.
That's hashtag camel toe.
Tracy also said it was weird rooting for the Redcoats. Hashtag America. Thank you very much, Tracy. My good friend who I'm doing this Go Set a Watchman podcast with Natasha, who's at La Ren Soul. That's LARENSOUL. She says it takes death and madness to shine light on the truth. So it took Arabella's death and a bit of madness for Strange to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
Pretty good. Why don't you read one from Matthew Papa?
Matt Papa at Matthew Papa 2 says, I say draw light for Magician of the Week because he magically found a way to appear in this episode.
Oh, that is pretty good.
Nice.
He shouldn't have.
And our old friend Susan Stacy at Black Eyed Lily gave us a couple tweets.
Oh, yeah.
She said, Drawlight is quite the dandy in this photo.
Yeah, there was a photo I hashtagged out of the pants that you're so fond of, Catfish.
Nice. And then she says, though to be accurate, Drawlight is really a fop rather than a dandy, according to Brummel.
Well, how would you just define a dandy or a fop?
Fop?
Me. Yeah.
Oh, boy. I would say this. A dandy is someone who is, I would think, would be richer. He's got a lot of finery. He's kind of a moron, and all he cares about is the way he looks. Now, a fop is somebody who's sucking up to others. So that's the way I define fop versus dandy. They're very close, though.
So he's kind of got all bases covered.
But he is more. But a fop again does. The difference is, I think of the dandy would be someone who doesn't have to suck up to others because he's got a lot of money, and the fop is someone who has to suck up because he's not set.
So maybe LaSalle's then is the dandy.
It could be, although again he took his money from. Someone who's dandy is a little bit more frivolous. For example, if he hadn't found a career and just kept drinking and gambling, then Jonathan Strange would have been a dandy, but never a fop.
Right. Okay, do we have any other social media things we want to give a shout out to, Catfish?
Our good old friend Glenn Ewing at Glenn Ewing says, so I'm just going to buy the show on Amazon. It's really good. Plus, I want to keep listening to hashtag New Hope.
Oh, we love Glenn Ewing. He's a bigger Star Wars fan than I am, and that's pretty hard. And he does great tweets on that.
Yeah, he was having problems with his cable setup.
Yeah, some people actually tweeted at me and said, "Hey, I can only see the first 3 episodes on demand. How do I get the 4th?" And I'm trying to find out this stuff, people, but really call your cable provider, your content provider, and they may be able to help you a bit more. I certainly assume you can find it on iTunes, and BBC America wants people to watch this show. So they are doing a great job tweeting and trying to get the word out themselves. And so they want people to see it. And
our friend Mark West at Mark West 713 says, wonderful as ever. One needs doing dedicated to Jay Strange to the tune, Can I Play With Madness?
Do you know the song, Can I Play With Madness?
I don't, and I'm still trying to figure out what that sentence means. One needs doing dedicated. I'm a little confused, but since there's a big support, why don't you sing the song?
1 needs madness, 2 need each other, 3 is the magic number, baby. Said.
Okay.
Is that good?
I don't know whether it's good or bad, but it certainly happened. I know about that.
All right.
So that's pretty much what we have for this week.
All right. Hey, guys, because we're going to be giving away all the wonderful gifts we can give away in episode 7. That means you've got 2 weeks to tweet #LostHopePodcast or to give us an iTunes review or a review on Stitcher. All right, Catfish, let's end this episode the way we end every episode with our Magician of the Week.
Okay, all right. We've got 3 nominees from you. What are they?
3 nominees. Well, my first nominee was Mr. LaSalle's for being able to make Childermass disappear from the room.
Right? And you forgot that he made Drawlight disappear from...
That was last week.
Okay,
This week,
right.
that's what he did.
Okay.
My second nominee... my second nominee was the gentleman with thistle-down hair for being able to poison minds like Steven. That was great magic. And my third nominee was Mrs. Bulworth for only being able to be seen in a very half a second in the prison cell with Drawlight.
But still
those
delighting
are my
you.
3 nominees for Magician.
All right,
of the
who
Week.
wins?
Well, just because it was the most magical thing just now finding out she was in the episode, I'm giving it to Mrs. Bulworth.
She's your Magician of the
My
Week.
Magician of the Week. Sorry, Team LaSalle. We had to give it to her. That was incredible, Catfish. I'm glad you caught that. That bumped it up to a 9.5 for me.
My Magician of the Week is Steven. 'Cause
Steven!
somehow he's cast a spell on you, and somehow you don't believe that he is the total and complete dick that he is.
I know.
You're still #Team Steven, and he's horrible.
He's you know what? I wish he would break out of his funk. And let me say, they're cutting some of his stories from the book. He has this quasi-romance in the novel that's very interesting. But yeah, Steven, he's just given up.
He's my
and
Magician of the Week.
Okay.
He has ensorcelled you.
Listeners, it's not too late to tweet at us and tell us your Magician of the Week or your ratings. We want to hear from everybody, and we certainly want to get you to be eligible to win some of these great, we hope, prizes we're going to receive.
Cross fingers.
All right, so please, how do people contact us, Catfish?
And they can hit me up at CJGman67.
Or you can reach me, Bubba. I'm at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM. At Fit and Trim on Twitter. Tonight, literally, in just an hour, we're going to be enjoying, hopefully, FX's The Strain. Please go to iTunes and Stitcher and other places and find the Got Your Milk podcast. If you're a fan of Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin or HBO's Game of Thrones, download the Joffrey podcast. And if you're at all intrigued by this new book, Go Set a Watchman from Harper Lee, the sequel / prequel to Kill a Mockingbird, go to iTunes, Stitcher, and download the Go Set a Watchman read-along podcast with me and my friend Tasha. So, until next week, you'll see us in
Lost Hope.